Hey, how's it going, everyone? And welcome back to our Lovecraft Country recap show, where we break down the latest episodes of HBO's latest series, Lovecraft Country. I'm, of course, your host, Griffin. And here at FilmSpeak, we like to say the conversation continues after the credits. And, of course, we are definitely going to be having a conversation about this episode after the credits. So if you want to be a part of that conversation, definitely consider subscribing to the channel for more insight, analysis, and interviews behind your favorite pieces of film and television. And of course, I don't do these alone. I am joined by two phenomenal guests. First of all, Elliott from Movie Files. Dude, how's it going?
Good, man. Rocking the Lakers jersey. This is the year of Kobe. Hopefully we get that championship. But no, man, doing good. We're going to talk about it. This is probably my favorite episode of the season thus far. Strange case. I think it should have been called maybe I Woke Up Like This.
But no, damn it.
It was a really good episode. I'm really excited to break it down with you guys.
Maybe you should be naming the episodes. You just you have a knack for it. And then, of course, I'm joined by my great friend, Gretchen, who's a staff writer over at Bustle. Gretchen, how's it going?
I am doing great, and I agree with Elliott. This episode is amazing. Definitely the best of the five.
Yeah, and I also agree with you. Yes, we're going to be talking about episode number 5, titled Strange Case. And it was definitely a strange case, but it was that weird, just like, out there, horrific body horror type stuff. I don't know. There is so much to love about this, and I think this is the show doing what it does best. So before we even dive into this episode, be sure to let us know your thoughts and opinions on tonight's episode down in the comment section below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What are some of the theories you got sort of going around in your head? We want to hear about it down in the comment section. So I guess we'll start with overall thoughts, but I think we all liked it. So just a little bit more than that. Gretchen, what was your overall impression of the episode outside of I loved it?
Well, I thought it was the episode that told probably the most concise story within a single episode. It felt like it could almost be a standalone. The body horror effects were just really cool. Yeah. And I also loved how it explored how Ruby experiences both racism and sexism as a Black woman. And then the moments where she is actually Hillary, I believe her name is. She sees how different the world is moving through the world as a white woman. And it was just such a powerful, especially the moment where Hillary gets run into by the young Black boy, and then he's trying to help her. And then there's a moment where she's like, everyone was scared for me, not of me. And that, to me, was just a hugely powerful moment, and I feel like it really echoes the first episode where you get all of the crazy horror, but it's also very like hard-hitting issues around racism, and it was just it was great.
No, I agree. I mean, like, it was like that perfect blending of like social commentary and like this weird like out of body experience. I mean, mixed with like the body horror and stuff like that. I agree with you, harkening back to that first episode where it's like, when this show is able to balance all of those elements, it's just like in top form. But yeah, Elliott, going over to you, I guess your first impressions.
Yeah, no, piggybacking off what Gretchen just said in regards to identity and knowing who you are, the same goes for Montrose, right? This is his first time he's able to be in his own physical skin, but he's not able to be who he is inside of him. But seeing him getting that big reveal that he is a gay man, and seeing that scene with him and Sammy at the club, and him smiling for the first time, I think this whole entire season, he's able to embrace who he really is. So I thought that was a really powerful moment. And we're going to talk about it, but Wumi Mushaku, I don't know who had the better performance, whether it was Leti in episode 3 or this episode. I thought that she, as Ruby, was just fantastic through and through. But yeah, overall, this was a very telling episode. This was this is kind of the midway point, so I guess we can call it a mid-season finale. And it felt that way because we got a lot of reveals, but also it opens the door for the rest of the 6 or 5 episodes for the rest of the season. So I love this episode through and through.
Yeah, if episode 4 was sort of like the penultimate mid-season finale, this definitely felt like a more sort of like contained and intimate like halfway point, because it was solely focused on the characters. specifically Ruby, but like you said, the whole episode, the thematic, like the theme across the board was identity, and being, comfortable in your own skin, literally, and like understanding what's like to be in someone else's skin, and like the issues that come with that. And so I thought that the balancing of like Ruby's arc with Montrose's arc, with like the stuff that's going on with Tick a little bit, it wasn't as important, I guess I would say, or to the grand scheme of things, and it was more just like little tidbits here and there, but you can definitely tell that he's sort of struggling with like his time in the war, and like the violence and the effects it had on him. I mean, like right out of the gate in this episode, he's like beating his father to a pulp, and like I think he even says to Leti, he's like, I don't, if you wouldn't have stopped me, I probably would have killed him. And so there is a darkness inside this guy that we haven't really seen before, but like has been hinted at. And so it was interesting to get that little intimate look at Tick for sure. But yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you guys said, especially the Ruby stuff. I think the first time she wakes up and she's in she's Hillary, and she's going around, she's very confused and stuff, and she's looking at the way people are treating her differently, like on the street, and then the black kid runs into her, and then the cops come out all like, they're gonna basically arrest him for doing nothing. I know, I thought it was like, that was such an eye-opening experience for her. And also horrifying at the same time. And I think that's what this episode is in a nutshell. It's eye-opening and horrifying. And that's what Lovecraft Country does best. But so I guess let's talk about that, the first experience with Ruby sort of, going into the body of Hillary and stuff like that. What were some of the things that you guys wanted to touch on with that specifically?
Well, I guess the biggest thing was we've seen the Hillary character in episode 2, or I think her name was Dell, and she was the one with the 2 dogs on a leash that was barking at Atticus and Uncle George and Leti. So I'm thinking to myself, I thought she died because if I'm not mistaken, Leti hit her in the head with a gun. She hit her head on the concrete, and I assume and we'll talk about that with, do you use these people's bodies once they're dead, or are they still alive? So we'll talk about that. So I'm just thinking to myself, okay, what's going on? And obviously we talked about it briefly off camera last week, but the big reveal was the William and Christina thing. So once she said, "Wake up, Ruby," I was just like, okay, this, explains that, them being one of the same character. But again, I was just thinking, okay, where are they going with this idea of using other people's bodies? How are they using their bodies? Do they have to be alive? Do they have to be dead to use their bodies as a vessel? So that was just very interesting to me, to seeing that character that I thought was dead in episode 2.
Yeah, for sure. I actually didn't even realize that until you brought it up, and then you were like, oh yeah, she was in episode 2, which actually that gets me definitely doubling down on the fact that, okay, so these are definitely pre-existing people who live in the world, and they have to be able to inhabit their bodies somehow. So yeah, is it they have to be dead in order to do that, or like what some of the theories going out there, maybe William isn't dead, or either he's dead or it's someone that Christina has sort of manifested. I have no idea. But anyways, Gretchen, going over to you, I guess sort of your take on this whole thing.
I think Elliott said everything perfectly. I really enjoyed how you can see, like for me, the most striking moment was when she went to go get the job again, and she immediately gets it. And not only does she get the job, she gets like the managerial position, which was like just prove that she was like way overqualified for that one job that she wanted, which was like her dream job.
Right.
It's insane. And I loved just the moment where she goes up to Tamara, her coworker, who's like putting the shoes incorrectly. And she was like, you can't do this. Like, you have to basically be twice as good to get half the credit.
Right.
You're representing all of this. And she just, I think it just shows with the way she treats Tamara and the way that she wasn't able to get the job, even though she was overqualified, that was just like this really powerful commentary on how hard she has to work to be successful as a Black woman. And I don't know, it was just, it was intense. And I spoke to One Me on the phone, and she talked a lot about how, like, basically, yes, she does resort to magic to become Hillary, but Wunmi doesn't think that she enjoys being Hillary. Like, she doesn't want to be anyone but herself, but the world keeps interrupting her. Like, she doesn't have a problem with being like a, 5'9", curvy Black woman. It's that the world doesn't love her as her. So, like, when we said, she basically fucks with these magicians just to, like, get recognized for the accomplishments she actually has. So
yeah,
it was good.
That's interesting. You bring that up with the whole Tamra situation. So she mentioned that Cena, she only has a 7th grade of education. She doesn't know like the financial classes. So it kind of made me start thinking about like just the slave mindset of how, like, for example, Hannah's character, where Titus would bring in this woman, a house slave, as they call them. And Tamara really doesn't have the educational stuff that Ruby had, but yet she has the looks. She's not as, like you said, curvy as Ruby. So it kind of made me start thinking about, and also we saw that scene with the manager when he was hitting on Tamara. He hired her, again, kind of that slave mindset of bringing in a house slave. She doesn't have the education, but she has the look. So it kind of played so many different layers within that hiring that Tamara character.
Yeah, that was the thing that I really enjoyed about it, is like you can see like the world is literally against Ruby. Like she can't, like she could be the smartest person in the world, in the room, and she is for the most part, but it's like, because she's a Black woman, because she's a little heavier, she's got curves, she's not like the whatever the centerfold model.
Conform to Eurocentric, beauty standards.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's because of all of these things. It's like, okay, so that's why she didn't get the job. And so it's like, yeah, she had to resort to magic in order to like sort of get into a position where she is now treated as equal. And because she doesn't look like herself, her intellect gets her even further. And so it's just, it is a really sad episode in a way, that the fact that it's like she has to do this, and then when we get to the end, she's like, she's had it, like she just these people are like coming in and they're treating like her culture like it's like a fun fair or something like that, like, oh, let's go out on this side of the town for the night, and it's awful. And then you see like she's looking through the fence and she sees like her manager hitting on Tamra after she's like shed herself of the body that she was in, and I think that's the breaking point, because she's like, well, I can't work in an environment where I have to interact with these ladies who are privileged but acting like they're like a little that they have to fight for some, for their rights and stuff like that. And then the manager who just like clearly has like an ego and a power trip and is utilizing his position in the world in order to just do whatever. The other thing that I really liked, and I kind of want to go back to when she was in the back room with the ladies. I thought that was really interesting, because that was like the perfect sort of like look at like white female privilege, that I think sometimes doesn't necessarily get addressed as much,
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're trying on products that aren't theirs. And they're basically breaking the rules, but they're like, it's fine. Like, no one's going to judge us. And they also make that comment at one point about the boss, where Hillary is like, or Ruby is like, oh, did you know, I forgot what she said, but like, has he ever come on to you or done anything weird? And they're like, oh no, he is the most wholesome man. He's so boring. And it's just like, it's this whole window of like, they've never been harassed by him, and they have probably never been punished for trying on these super expensive clothes and maybe even taking them out, of the store and then returning them. So it's, Ruby, it's a whole new world for Ruby.
Yeah. Well, and I love how she just like, she goes in there and she tries to like, like turn it on its head a little bit, right? Like she conforms to it for a little bit, but then it's like, after she's seen it for what it is, and she clearly decides that she doesn't want to be a part of it, she just goes in there and she does her own thing. And I think that speaks a lot about the character. It's like her values and her, rights are more important than just like, getting to a certain like social status, like in whatever. So I don't know, that to me was like, okay, so it's like she's not going to conform to this horrible mentality that everyone else has. And I don't know, I really love that. But going back to the body horror thing, that was It was so good, and I don't know how much of that was like prosthetics. I don't know how much was VFX. But Elliot, I think you said it best, and I'm going to toss it over to you because you texted me, as we were sort of talking about the episode, and you said it was like probably the best you had seen.
Yeah, I mean, the two things that came to mind, I know a lot of people that saw the first 5 episodes a month ago said that this was the body horror episode and reminded them a lot of The Fly, which it definitely does, but also reminded me a lot of American Werewolf in London, that transformation of the characters transforming into a werewolf and just the visual effects, the CGI, the nature of it, the bones cracking and the face splitting apart. It was just
gnarly.
It was literally some of the best visuals I've seen. I don't know if there's an award at the Emmys for visual effects for TV show. I believe there is. It definitely needs to win something for this episode. Also, episode 3 with the ghost and all that stuff. But it was absolutely incredible seeing those sequences. And it could have got old, because they did it about 4 or 5 times this episode. But every single time they did it seemed like it got better and better, and this became more gruesome. And Christina coming out of William was crazy, but the best one to me was Ruby in the alley. That just seeing the whole sequence, they didn't shy the camera away for the blood. They showed you everything, and especially the scene when she was in the manager's office and she shed
that was
in there at that line. It was incredible. The transformations were literally jaw dropping.
Yeah, that one was the one in the manager's office was my favorite. And when she, oh God, it's so good. I mean, it's so brutal, but it's just like, you love to see it when she's like shoving the heel up his ass. I was like, oh man, that's like man. It was.
I will say too, within this episode, I don't know what it was. I'm not a big Cardi B fan, and we've been kind of criticizing the choice of music for whatever reason. The Cardi B Money song. And
it worked.
Kodak,
it worked. It did. Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but some people also are theorizing that the song choices may play into this whole idea that there's a parallel time travel element, that we're getting this contemporary music because of that object. So that's what some people are theorizing, why we're getting this kind of maybe jarring music, this soundtrack. So that's something that I was like, oh, that's interesting if that is the case.
Do you buy into that?
I kind of do, man, because the more I'm thinking about it, and obviously we'll probably leave it at the end as far as predictions for the next episode, but I think Hippolyta will use that Ori to try to go back in time to maybe save Uncle George. I think that is something that they may try to do, and she might go into the future by try to go into the past. I think there's going to be some time travel element involved in this season somehow, some way.
Yeah.
Gretchen, do you buy it?
I want to buy it. I like the idea that everything, comes back around and there's a reason for everything. I love that kind of storytelling, but I almost want to just say it's because it's her signature thing. She did it in Underground. She's doing it here. But I would love to be surprised and find out she's actually the one, that Hippolyta is actually the one bringing in the music. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be interesting. I'm not quite on board with that theory yet. I do just think it's like a stylistic choice, but that would be interesting. That'd be a cool way to sort of tie in the contemporary music and stuff like that. Let's touch on Ruby and William's relationship a little bit in here, because obviously when she has that first experience, it's like, it kind of like rocks her world and everything, and then she goes back, and like William, I guess, lays out the tarp and like tries to pull her out of the skin, which is like, before we know what's happening, we're sort of like, what's going on here? This is really weird and stuff. And then she wakes up in the bed and William is like, giving his spiel about the potion and such. But I guess what were your big takeaways from their like interaction throughout this episode and how that relationship sort of progressed?
Oh man, I feel like, I don't know if I was just reading too much into this, but I really thought that it was like this charged, like real, like sexual / romantic thing. But then when they revealed it was Christina, I don't know if I was just if that was just Christina completely manipulating her. And I think that's my big question at the end of the episode is, does Christina actually care about Ruby and want to empower her? And even is she actually attracted to her? Or was that all just her pretending to do it to get her to go to that lodge? And then I was also wondering, like, is there any spillover from that person's body into how we really are, maybe William the person is attracted to Ruby, and it's kind of affecting how Christina's acting. I mean, I don't know.
Well, the other thing that sort of got me thinking was like with Ruby. I mean, clearly you can understand her frustration with Tamara, just like being in the position she's in. But we have an understanding of Hillary to be like a very violent and kind of like bitchy person.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of that maybe trickled over into like Ruby's personality throughout the episode. So that's an interesting point that I didn't quite think of until now. But I think you can make a case for that being like, what happens when you sort of embody this other person. It's really weird that in a couple of weeks we're going to get Possessor coming out, because I feel like this episode and Possessor are incredible companion pieces that literally tackle like the exact same things. And so I mean, obviously I'm going to be very curious to see how people receive that film, but yeah, I don't know. Anyways, it was just kind of wild. But yeah, Elliott, going to you.
Yeah, no, like Gretchen was saying, that is a very interesting idea to think that some of their essence of who they are as a person, or their taste in people or moral compass, is somehow still attached to them if they are dead, or if it is just literally they're using I don't know. We'll see with the whole connection of if they're dead or not. But that is a very interesting theory. But also, too, within that kind of exposition that William was giving her in that scene, he had mentioned the Professor Epstein, and he created these magical doorways, which I think kind of answer the questions we posed last week regarding how were they in Boston, but that house was obviously in Chicago. So those doorways are kind of portals of a sense to different avenues across the world. So I thought that was really interesting as well. And wondering if one of those doorways lead into, again, we've yet to talk about Hannah. Is her presence still alive? And does she have the Book of the Dead, the Book of the Names? So that was a really interesting moment too, that the doorways explain kind of that, like I said, the tunnel scenes that we got last week.
Well, and if you want to continue to get deep into the weeds, is part of Hannah, like in Tick, like it's like something like that, where because he had that vision of her, right? Or that dream of her or something like that.
Yeah. And
so it's like, so it's like, I don't know, maybe I don't know. That might be a step way too far, but I don't know. It got me thinking about that. But I guess let's sort of talk about the mission that Ruby goes on in the lodge, where William basically tells her, it's like, hey, if you want to keep using this potion, you're gonna have to do me a favor. And so she goes to the lodge, and she's basically putting like a curse in there to kill the main guy. I forget his name, but
Captain Lancaster, I believe his name was.
Right. And Gretchen, before we went live, you were talking a little bit about like the structure of these organizations and like how each lodge might have like their own rituals or stuff like that. I don't know if you want to kind of like elaborate on that.
I don't know if this is correct. I feel like this is an answer I could have found if I continued to read the book, but I'm lazy. So I'm going to preface it with that. But my understanding was that the entire group, the entire cult, is called the Order of the Ancient Dawn, right? Because then Montrose had the book that was the bylines of the Order of the Ancient Dawn. And I thought that just specifically the Braithwaite Lodge was the Sons of Adam, because they're literally the descendants of Titus Braithwaite. And then the other lodges maybe then are different names, and they also have maybe different pages that they're translating from, and maybe they have different powers. And I only say that because when it shows the captain taking off his shirt, he has very obviously like a different torso. Like it looks like a great torso that has been sewn on his body. There's a guy in his closet who looks like he's also been kind of sewn like Frankenstein style too. So it just seems like something very different from what Christina's able to do.
Right. So what, if you had to guess, what would you say like their like thing is, that they like just take different pieces of someone's body? Yeah, they just do that. Like, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it's giving him a huge benefit. Like he doesn't, I don't know, maybe he had died at one point and they're able to like resurrect themselves by putting on different bodies. I don't remember if we saw him beyond episode 3, right? He was the cop who brutalized Leti, I believe. So we don't know why he would have that. I don't know. I don't have a great guess.
So because I don't actually know if we got a good look at his torso, but was it a black torso?
That's what I saw.
That's what I saw too.
What I saw, yeah.
So I was getting a little bit of Get Out. Yeah, I was getting a little bit of Get Out vibes from that, where they're like, using like the bodies of them to like make themselves look better, or more whatever, like athletic, like whatever they were talking about in Get Out and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Elliot, what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, this whole time I've just been kind of, because I'm still confused by that whole entire scene, just in general, from Captain Lannister saying, "Yeah, I'm the new leader of this social club," and the guy in the closet. Yeah, I think Gretchen's onto something in regards to some type of body modifications. I don't know if they used people's skin to imposter people. I don't know. He puts on a black person's skin to infiltrate. I don't know, black leaders in the community. I have no idea. I don't know who the whole scene where they were talking about who the guy was in the closet, that did he take some money? Like, again, I think that scene was like a setup for something further. Like, we don't know who the guy, we haven't met the guy in the closet yet. We haven't met much of Captain Lannister. So I think this was like the question mark type of like, let's go into the second half of the season exploring this lodge and whatever they got going on. Because they also mentioned that William was supposed to be the lodge, that leader of that particular lodge, which kind of makes it interesting that if William is dead, we've technically seen William in episode 2 walking around as William, but wouldn't everyone have known that he died? I don't know. It's still a lot of question marks in regards to that whole scene in general for me.
Right. Well, here, I'm going to pose something here. I don't think this could be completely wrong, but like, what if the guy who was in the closet was one of the people in this, lodge, one of the people in the organization or whatever, who was undergoing the transformation that they all sort of like go through. And so he was just in there, while they were like having this party, but he's still going to get like, Frankenstein together and stuff like that. Because it seemed like he was like trying to warn the people in the room that Ruby was in that closet. And so if he's like a member of the lodge or something like that, I feel like that would almost make sense a little bit. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I felt that was like their Yahima person. So I kind of like your idea better. But truly, I don't know.
Because it didn't sound like he was as equal to them. Because it sounded like they were like, the guy in
they
the
were
club.
laughing at him.
I guess that's true.
Like they took him from somewhere, and again, the money and all that stuff. So I think there's some, I don't know, maybe Captain Lannister is trying to run for governor, and this is someone that didn't vote for. I don't know. We'll see what the guy in the closet is and who's he. I don't know. Maybe he is William, and did they put a new skin on him? I don't know. Who knows?
Man, that's fair. Yeah. This is interesting. So many things to sort of speculate about regarding this, but let's sort of like close out the Ruby, William, and Christina stuff when we get to the end, and Ruby finds out that William is Christina. Which first of all, I just want to say that I thought it was like kind of ridiculous that they waited so long to reveal that. Like we all knew, we were all waiting for it to happen, and then they end the episode on it, and I was like, feel like you played that out a little too much. I feel like we all, especially when you introduced the potion at the beginning, it was like, well, no shit, like they're the same person. But I don't know what sort of implications do you think that's going to have, like, going forward for Ruby and Christina / William? Because I kind of going off of what you said, Gretchen, earlier on, I did feel like there was like some actual romantic and sexual like chemistry there. And again, like I have no idea what this potion does to someone, whether or not like they take traits and attributes of the person that they're inhabiting. But if not, then I don't know. It's just really interesting to sort of like see this relationship progress.
Right. Yeah. I don't need Christina to like be redeemed in any way. Like I don't believe that at the end of the day she's going to end up being on Ruby's side or protecting her, but I think it would be an interesting interplay if she kind of falls in love with Ruby in some way, so it adds like complexity to her character, but at the same time she's still very much like the girlfriend character in Get Out or Chris Evans in Knives Out, where like she has some facets where it seems like she has empathy, but at the end of the day, she's always going to do the self-serving and racist thing. So yeah, I would be interested to see how much she actually cares about Ruby.
Yeah, Elliot, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, that is a very interesting thing. If she does care for her, or if it's just another form of manipulation, because she's just manipulating everyone in this entire season so far. So that will be really interesting to see if that kind of plays out. But also within kind of that realm of that whole storyline, I'm still in the belief that the manager, I don't know if you guys remember the scene where Ruby, Hillary Davenport first has her transformation in office. She left that potion in his office. He said, "Oh, you forgot your perfume." I wonder if he's gonna use that for some get back at her, some type of situation. But that stayed in the back of my mind. He still has that potion. She didn't kill him, so he's still potentially a threat. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what Christina Ruby relationship moving forward. Will they continue to work together? And also, this just opens up my mind's just going with who else could be a potential imposter in this show.
Yeah.
Could Leti not be Leti? Because we know that she died in episode 2. So again, if we're theorizing, if you have to die to use this person's skin, is someone using Leti's skin? Is someone using Six skin? Montrose, like it now just opens up like this scroll situation, like a secret invasion war that no one's even who they are. So that's really where my mind was like, who's who now?
Yeah, none of these characters are their original selves. They're all inhabited. No one is anyone, and everyone is someone. So it's now it could just like turn into a giant mess when we start thinking about it like that. Speaking of Montrose, Tick, and Leti, let's kind of move on to them next. Let's start with Montrose because obviously he had the most development here. I think we all sort of assumed that this would probably be an episode where we get a little bit more backstory into his sexuality and stuff like that, and you know, him grappling with being a horrible father and not feeling like he, you know, like the Montrose that Tick knows is not himself, and obviously dealing with that. So after Tick sort of like beats him to a pulp, he like kind of goes and just, you know, sort of removes himself from their equation and such. I guess what was your first reaction when he went to Sam's house and just sort of let himself be who he is?
It really brought me back to Moonlight with the character Moonlight. Like he was finally able to just, first off, it seems like, I guess, kind of in a good way and then also in a bad way. It seems like he was using Sammy for maybe just whenever he had a bad day, had an incident with his son, or just not who he is. He's like just uses him for sexual pleasure. Right. But then it seemed like as the episode went by, it seems like he's now starting to embrace Sammy as his boyfriend, as his lover. So I thought that scene was very telling, and kudos to HBO to not shy away from that conversation. I think it's in the Black community, and particularly with Black men, you know, in the closet, you know, secretly being gay is its own kind of thing that takes place in the Black community. So I thought it was really telling that they had that scene in there, and they didn't shy away from you know, having two men having sex on the screen, which I thought, again, HBO does never really shies away from those issues, or not even issues, but those scenes that have a lot of importance. So I thought that scene was really well done. And also, again, the progression of him just finally, again, they mentioned the metamorphosis and the locust becoming a butterfly. He was able to break out of his shell and become the person that he wants to be, and all that stuff. So again, the Montrose stuff and Michael K. Williams, he finally gets the time to shine. Such a fantastic actor. And I thought the way that they handled that storyline was really well done, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. Gretchen?
Yeah, I just loved how you can tell with his storyline and then Ruby's storyline, it's really both of them learning how to be uninhibited in their own ways. Ruby obviously does something very violent with hers, but with Montrose, it's very much like him just learning to be less repressed. And obviously he did start the episode doing a very bad thing, but he did it, I think, from a position of he's really trying to protect his son. Right. And at the end, you know, he goes to Sammy, and that's his, you know, place of comfort. And I just love the scene at the end where he's finally like being himself, you know, and he's really kind of opening himself up. And I truly think that this is my personal opinion, but I think Montrose is a more developed character than Tick. Like I would agree. Really like Montrose a little better than Tick because we just don't really know who he is. Yeah. But Montrose has all these facets. You could tell he makes bad decisions because he's alcoholic, and also because he had an abusive past, and he's been in the closet for so long, and he's finally embracing who he is. And meanwhile, I don't know what's going on with Tick. He's just pushing ahead as like the typical protagonist, but does he have a lot of aspects to him? I don't know yet.
I don't, and I 100% agree with you. I think that's what this episode did, was it showed that Montrose is just like this multi-layered character who's dealing with so many repressed issues, and this was the episode where he was able to just sort of like let them all out and just be himself. And I liked seeing, where when he first goes to Sammy's place, obviously we can kind of assume that this is a regular thing for him, that he would go whenever he was frustrated just to like get a sexual release. And then going forward, how he like is spending more time with him. Going off of what Elliott said, he begins to accept Sammy as his boyfriend. And I think the last scene when they're at the drag bar that was beautiful. And like seeing him just sort of be in this element with all these people who are willing to like accept him and shower him in love. It was just like something that I feel like he's needed for a long time, especially after his son just like almost killed him. But I agree with you. Like I'm waiting for the episode where we get the in-depth look at Tick, because he's just a very straight and stereotypical protagonist, I guess. I in episode 1, I thought there was like a couple of things that they were doing there that were interesting, but like since then, he's just like, I don't know. I need more from him, and I'm assuming we're going to get it. I feel like they're probably building up to it, and especially with this episode where he's kind of like hinting at stuff that happened in the war with this Korean woman, I guess, that he was potentially seeing. Maybe that was the woman from that flashback or that vision that we saw later. So I don't know, but yeah, I guess sort of like shifting away from the Montrose stuff to Tick and Leti, there wasn't really a whole lot there, nor did I think there needed to be, but it seemed like they were sort of in sort of this whole theme of acceptance and whatnot. They were sort of accepting their love for one another instead of sort of like playing the will they won't they game. They sort of came to the decision that they're they are a thing, they're together and whatnot. Was there anything else you guys kind of wanted to touch on with Tick and Leti?
No, outside of, I totally agree with you guys that Tick has been kind of in the, I'll say episode 1 and 2 to me were kind of more Atticus-centric type of episodes, him finding out he has powers, him finding out the heritage of Hannah and all that stuff. And then 3 was Leti, and then 4, we got everything there. So I think that the show is just what they're trying to do is really make us care for the surrounding characters, because this is our first time really meeting, Ruby. This is our first time really finding out who Montrose was. So I think they're just putting the chess pieces on the board. So once we go into the second half, we care so much more about these secondary characters on top of our primary characters, just to make it that kind of thrill ride. But I think, like you said, Griffin, in regards to Leti and Tick finally kind of, which to me as a horror fan means that one of them is going to die because now they're love to each other. Same goes with Sammy. Something's probably going to happen to Sammy. Once you accept your love, they're going to just get it. They're going to be the next one on the chopping block. So no, I thought that even though they didn't really do that much on screen, I thought what they were doing still played an importance of him decoding the ring that he has and all that stuff that he's, the die stuff that we saw at the end again.
Yeah.
I think we're getting a Tick flashback, him and Jahan, I believe is Jamie Kung's character. I think we're going to get one of those episodes, or at least a scene kind of showing us what their relationship was like and what she warned him about, things of that nature.
Yeah, for sure. Gretchen?
Yeah, I think for me, the Tick and Leti thing that I really enjoyed was when they finally had sex again, it was them like reiterating that they actually did like each other. Because I think my issue in episode, I think 3 was when they did it. I did not like that Tick was goaded on by that guy to essentially do it. And it was her first time. And to me, it just kind of had a little bit of like the tinge of like toxic masculinity. But in episode 5, they just reiterate like, no, I actually do like you. And maybe our first time was not ideal, but I care about you.
With the dead ghost behind us.
Yeah, right. I was like, oh God,
candles. No lit
I know.
Yeah.
So, it for me, it was like, okay, I could open my heart to Tick again and him dating Leti because I love her and want her to be taken care of.
Right. Well, he kind of has been a dick for the past couple of episodes. He's just very like overly aggressive,
very focused. Very aggressive. I think when it comes to like Tick's characterization, like I know he's supposed to be like a nerd, right? I mean, that was one of the things like Montrose picked on him about is he loves reading sci-fi books, and his dream shows that. But I wish that they pulled that out a little more. Because I think you get, like you said, the more of the generic like action hero and not as much of him like showing that he's actually a nerd, and maybe he can be a little awkward and stuff. So I just want a little bit more awkward Tick.
I agree with you because they sort of hinted at it a little bit in 3 and in 1 and such, but he has sort of just transformed into generic action hero number 3 or whatever. And
I think he still has some of that nerdism in him.
Really?
When I think about when he was, what was it, episode 4 when he was in the library? I mean, that's a pretty nerd reading all those books and kind of like, deciphering the map. And he also in this episode he deciphered the code. I mean, that was a very Peter Parker-ish type of thing. He had glasses on.
Gosh, you just have to defend him. You have to defend him, don't you? No, I'm just kidding. Well, speaking of the die sort of thing that happened at the end with him in the book and such, what do you think's going on there? Do we have any thoughts?
I thought it was a little too literal. I was just like, okay, like, is it a ghost that just hates him? Is it just, I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm just really fascinated to figure out because he mentioned it with Leti when he said they have a special relationship. He mentioned that he had a relationship with this girl and in the war. And I think either because again, we saw her come out of the closet in episode 2, and that sometimes that haunts him. If she's dead, if she's alive, he's talking to someone on the other side of the phone. So is there does he already know about some supernatural elements? Or again, if she is alive and she warned him years or however ago their relationship was. So that is a very interesting aspect of who that character is to him. Very first episode, she was in purple, coming out of the spacecraft. So there is definitely something with that character and that whole situation. It will be interesting to see what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
And someone did like a screen cap of one of the trailers, and apparently there's some images where it looks like Jamie Chung behind like a rice paper wall, and she's clearly transforming into something. Looks kind of like insecty. So maybe she's just like some Asian spirit or a ghost, and she's latched onto him. I don't know.
That's very interesting. Now I want episode 6 now. That's right because none of us have seen it.
Yeah, none of us have seen it. Isn't episode 6 supposed to be Jamie Chung's episode?
Yeah, let me look up.
I honestly have no idea because I mean, watching the screeners, they don't give a preview for the next week, So it's like, well, I don't know what next week's supposed to be. But while Elliott's looking that up, Gretchen, closing thoughts on this episode.
Oh man, I just want to know what Christina is up to. I know obviously that is the long-running, theory or mystery for the whole season, but I just really want to know specifically what she's going to do with Ruby, because now that Ruby knows it's her, like I don't think Ruby's going to want to help her now that she knows it's not William, the guy she maybe was having some kind of relationship with. So I just want to know what her initial plan was with Ruby and if she'll end up helping her in the end.
Yeah, for sure. Elliott?
Yeah, so episode 6 is called Meet Me in Dushu. So I assume that is somewhere overseas or in another country. So that might be that Jamie Chung episode, which would be great to see. But as far as this things to look forward to, again, my whole mind of like, okay, who else can use this potion? Who's used it before? Will this somehow bring up, again, if the theory is you have to be dead to be used as a vessel, does that mean that someone's going to impose themselves as Samuel or impose himself as Uncle George, but also too the whole Ori. I think that time travel thing is really kind of sticking on to me. That I think somehow, some way, Hippolyta is gonna use time travel and either try to save her husband. I don't know, someone had mentioned too, like, I don't know if you guys remember Montrose saying that someone with a bat saved him when he was a kid. Some people are theorizing that might have been Hippolea going back in time and being some type of, this time traveler, because she's an explorer. So that's her characteristics from everything. So I'm really excited to learn more about that and see the weirdness and see what other genre that this show is going to dive into, because we've gotten the road trip monster episode, we gotten the haunted house episode, we got the Ventress episode, now we got the body horror. So what other genre is left, other than the sci-fi time travel element and all that stuff of the, so it's really exciting to see what they do for the rest of 6 through 10.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this, if you weren't like totally on board with the show after like the first couple of episodes or whatever, and just the way the story was progressing, I feel like after this one, you're 100% going to be in, because there's so much intrigue there. There's so many great character moments. And you're right that, each episode sort of taking on the life of a different horror subgenre is just brilliant. And I'm very, very, very excited to see what happens next week. But guys, the most important thing is, what do you all think? Let us know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. All your thoughts, your theories. Do you think that anything we're saying makes sense, is going to happen? Are we out of our minds, insane? We want to hear about it down in the comments section below. Thank you to my two guests for joining me today, Gretchen, Elliott. Gretchen, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Gretchen_Smail on Twitter, and I'm also at Bustle. I have an interview with One Me coming out, I think, today. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah,
go check that out. I'm sure it's phenomenal. I mean, based off of what you just said about it. I'm sure it was
amazing.
Great. Elliott, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to that interview, because I've been a fan of hers for a while, but this episode was just so great to see her finally get that moment to shine. But yeah, you guys can find me on YouTube here at Movie Files, movie reviews, TV reviews, live streams, all that fun stuff. So definitely check me out there, as well as on social media, Instagram, as well as Twitter. So yeah.
He's the man who broke the internet prior to the Dune trailer dropping, and then Warner Brothers said, "No, screw you. We need to break the internet. You're not allowed to break it." So go give his channel a watch. But guys, if you haven't done so already, be sure to like this video, share with your Lovecraft Country loving friends, and subscribe to the FilmSpeak channel so you don't miss another recap and review of Lovecraft Country. And also, if you're interested in more film and television related content, you can like FilmSpeak on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, just search FilmSpeak, and if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this recap and review of Lovecraft Country Season 1, Episode 5, and we'll catch you back here next week. Take care.